I watched the video on the Twitter thingamabob, and in reference to specifically South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho, and Colorado, in reference to my Medal of Honor art project that I was working on. Though I did, oh, and no, Montana didn't have that issue with GPS stuff, but Iowa, but then it rerouted. So in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, there were times in those states specifically that the GPS had stated that I was supposed to drive into a cornfield or onto farmland or these different areas that did not have a road. Now, if it had a gravel road, I'd drive on the gravel road, but there were several points where, and there was only one, where the gravel road actually went onto a farmland. And after being surrounded by corn on both sides of that gravel road, I didn't do that again, because I was not about to turn by accident and mess up any of the plants. So, just a quick little, I can't believe certain individuals are so, whatever. I did not know that one particular gravel road, I think it was in Idaho, I think it was. But whatever state it was in, I turned around on the gravel road. I didn't drive like onto any plants, because I have this thing about being respectful wherever I go. So in Idaho, actually, that did happen in several GPS locations to get a Medal of Honor recipient. I refused to. And the GPS, I followed the directions, and there were ones that I didn't get, mainly in South Dakota was where the majority of them were, where the GPS said to turn into the field of corn or the field of whatever the plants were, and I comprehend at this point, it is known that I didn't invite anybody or any of that sort of stuff in any way. However, I want to clarify that, because especially with anything after the state of Montana, when I went out there the first time, I had gotten a rental car. So, rental car, when I would drive it, did not go into any cornfield. The best example I could give to try to defend myself on that, because I don't know who would be, I know that there are people who are dumb enough to do that. I don't know them by name specifically, but I know that there are people who would be dumb enough and arrogant enough to do that. So pre-head injury, there were people in Crystal Lake South who had invited me to go cow tipping, and I said no. There's a multiple amount of reasons. One of them is I'm not going to tip over a cow and slip into poop. Pretty much very simple. Didn't make sense to do that. The other reason was farmland is private property, and I'm not going to do that. And so, despite being made fun of by the individuals who called me rude because I found car racing much more fun than doing that, in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, similar aspects. Now, there were several Medal of Honor recipient markers that the GPS actually did have the directions go into a cornfield or a farm. I mean, some of the plants were little bitty, some were really, really tall, and it was like, yeah, no, I know I have insurance on this car, but no. I don't want to pay that fine. I don't know what that fine would be, but I have a feeling it wouldn't be covered by the rental car insurance. So, that would be, not just, the whole I don't want to upset any farmers or be shot, or go to jail or go to prison or any of that sort of stuff. Kind of weird about, that, I guess. But I just wanted to clarify that, because again, I didn't invite anybody to drive in a separate car to follow me. I didn't invite anybody to go on the trip with me except for my son, and that was because he's a minor at the time, and so he would be in the car with me, not in his own car, in the same car. And so I didn't have anyone that I was like, yeah, there was a guy who I had met in Arizona with a 210 phone number for San Antonio, and he had done a thing where he rode his motorcycle and like other people filmed it, and I wouldn't allow that. It would have to be in the same vehicle because of safety precautions, but even still, I didn't invite anybody to do that. And so if anybody wrongly lied and said that they had permission that they didn't have, I didn't give anybody permission to follow me as far as like on my Medal of Honor art project trips, like at all. I would guesstimate there'd have to be discussions with various cities after discussing it with the states and stuff like that to make sure that everybody knew about it, so that way law enforcement was informed and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but like I would think that that would be of importance. And you'd have to have licenses, not just driver's licenses. And while I did have a dash cam in the car, mainly in case there was ever a car accident, that was the only reason why I had the dash cams. I didn't ever give those chippy things to anybody. I didn't invite anybody to use them or anything like that because it was none of their business. It wasn't for them to do. It was my medal and is my Medal of Honor art project. And I'm extremely particular. Those who understand astrology, especially if they're a Virgo, understand how CDO a Virgo is. And I'm so CDO that I don't even call it OCD. I call it CDO because of the alphabetizing aspect. That's how CDO I am. So the aspects in reference to I didn't give anybody permission, obviously. And so I wanted to clarify that because I wouldn't be throwing the temper tantrums that I've been throwing while trying to keep as calm as possible, because I would not do that because of my CDO-ness. A lot of things would have to be done to extreme specifications, kinda extremely CDO. And Medal of Honor art project, not just anyone would be allowed. So, if there were and or are people that would be arrogant enough and ignorant enough to think that that would be considered acceptable, no. First, by technicalities, this is the way I would think it would have to be done. I complete a certain number of Medal of Honor artwork pieces. And then, because they are specific to each branch of the United States of America's armed forces, I would have to contact each of the branches after I had completed the first set without causing any problems. And after, because of the way the military is for the United States of America's armed forces, for example, in movies, you have to get the government's permission to have the uniforms in full on the different people involved. And so I thought and would think it's no different. It's probably far more extreme for something like a Medal of Honor art project. And so my CDO-ness would not allow such. And while I did invite 2 different females to take a vacation with me, meaning they would get to stay in the hotel room and do whatever they wanted to do while I did my Medal of Honor art project, that is not the same, and we would have driven in the same car. Because again, I would guesstimate for safety precautions the necessity of certain things. So, I did not give anybody permission to follow me in person. That's called stalking. If I'm not mistaken, going from city to city and state to state, not while, looking at posts online on social media, but in person, going and figuring out the schedule, that I would think is stalking. And I did not invite that at all. That would actually interfere me. Because I would want to make sure that the different individuals of each city and state would feel comfortable. Whether they were military, law enforcement, fire department, EMS, or civilian, it would. I would think something like that would need to be and while after having had to contact CID and then the Pentagon, contacting the Tacoma Police Department and having to contact the FBI, and then from there kind of snowball effect where, well, I guess I'm gonna just write a letter to the CIA and the FBI the White House and the House of Congress and the House of Senate and Mr. Bezos at Amazon and and then oh well, then if that means that people were hacking and stalking, well let me write to Mr. and Mrs. Gates at Microsoft and let me do this and do that, so that way I don't upset anybody, and let them know that I did not invite anybody in a contractual way. I had discussed it, but I never finalized that because I would not allow just anyone. I'm an extremely CDO. So I did not drive on to any plants because I knew better. As someone who enjoys gardening, I am not about to mess up somebody else's garden. No matter if it is a little garden or a big garden, I'm not going to mess that up. I'm fair because farmers have a garden, big garden, and so it's like it's a mutual respect type thing. Like, I'm not messing with your stuff, and so I wanted to clarify that if any cherubim decided to take that upon themselves. But, then upon that choice of taking that upon themselves, they themselves as cherubim would essentially, take the responsibilities of the legal ramifications for trespassing onto farmers' property and whatever those laws are, and extraditions to those states. So I just wanted to make that clarifying statement. After having driven out to where I did, as far as after finding out, and here, a letter to Homeland Security, and here's some books, and and here, Governor, because in case they stemmed out of the state of Texas. Here you go. So, have this thing about being respectful. Not messing with things. I'll make recommendations, but I will not impose. So, and this. Please share.